Hey everybody, here's our next video. This is our beloved truck here. This is going to be one of the more challenging videos that we've ever made, but I think it'll be worth it. We're going to talk about our experience towing with our truck, and at the end of the video we're going to open it up and we're going to need your help. So stay tuned for this video. I think it'll be a good one.
We are Kyle and Nicole, avid travelers from Michigan. In 2021, Kyle quit his job and we have been traveling across North America in our travel trailer while I continue to work full-time from the road. We love to create content showing amazing destinations, things to do, free camping spots, and RV life. We hope you will like, subscribe, and comment on our videos and join us for these fantastic adventures. You never know where we will pop up next.
So first things first, here is our truck. We have a 2009 Dodge Ram half-ton, four-wheel drive with a quad cab. It gives you about a 6-foot box. It's a little bit bigger than that. The quad cab is the middle cab for Dodge. They have just a regular extended cab, and then they have the crew cab, which is the biggest cab that they have. Way back when we bought this in 2009, we bought it under the Cash for Clunkers program. I traded in an old 3/4 ton single cab, two-wheel drive truck, which, funny thing, would be a great tow vehicle at this point, except it'd be a little old by now. But when I did that, I never imagined I would be towing an RV ever in my life. I never actually planned to own one really ever. But here we are many years later. We got a lot of towing under our belt. So with our truck, it is on the low end of towing capacity for half-ton trucks. As I said, when we bought this, I wasn't planning on doing any towing. Maybe something small, utility trailer, whatever. Never expected an RV. So when we bought our trailer in 2020, we sized it accordingly to the truck to match what our truck can tow. So we have a pretty lightweight trailer. That's why we have an ultralight. There were really very few options, but we were pretty fortunate with the trailer that we got. It works out pretty well with the truck. So when we first started traveling in March of 2021, we were just over 114,000 miles. Now here we are in September of 2025, and we are at 241,000 miles. So we're fast approaching 250,000 miles. So we got a lot of towing experience under our belt. We wanted to share our story of what it's like to tow with a half-ton pickup truck all across North America with close to 250,000 miles and share what that's been like for us. So if you remember back to 2009, the whole premise from the Cash for Clunkers program was to get some cars to sell. At the time, both GM and Chrysler were going through a government bailout, so they were offering incentives from the government to purchase cars. One of the incentives that Chrysler also offered at the time is they introduced a lifetime powertrain warranty on all of their vehicles, and there was also the option to buy a service contract that turned that lifetime powertrain warranty into a lifetime bumper-to-bumper warranty. Now that sounds like a great deal, and it has been. The whole idea behind it is that Chrysler will continue to repair the vehicle until the repair costs more than the value of the vehicle. But it hasn't been without its problems, and I'm going to attempt to tackle my journey with my Mopar warranty in a separate video. Kind of looking forward to that. It hasn't always gone well, and I have a lot of opinions about it. So every vehicle is going to have parts wear out and break. That's why there's service stations everywhere. So I'm going to talk about the parts that I've had to replace while we've been towing. But first I want to talk about all the repairs that had to be done before we set out towing on our journey. They've been really quite minor. I've had to replace some exhaust bolts. There was a recall on the outer tie rod ends. I had to have a new front door latch installed on the passenger side. Basically, the locking mechanism wasn't working anymore. The automatic, you had to use it manually. There is an axle seal on the right front side that was replaced, and both front wheel bearings were replaced. As you can see here on my little chart, so all of those repairs, most of the time, the deductible is $0 when it's the powertrain warranty, and my actual bumper-to-bumper warranty, that costs $100 once I got past 36,000 miles. So basically, any repair that I have done is going to cost me $100 unless it's covered by the lifetime powertrain warranty, and then that's going to be free. So with those repairs, I left out all oil changes, brake pads and rotors, tires, batteries, belts, all that kind of stuff that's just normal routine maintenance. None of that stuff is covered by the warranty, and so that's all covered out of my own pocket. How you handle your vehicle, how you drive, road conditions, all that kind of stuff is going to determine how often you're changing your brakes and your tires and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to include any of that. Just too cumbersome to go through each thing, and I don't think you care. So in the next 125,000 miles of the truck's journey, she's gone through a little bit more trouble. Our first stop, we had a problem with the fan in Ohio. It actually caused the transmission fluid to boil and shoot out the dipstick. So I had the fan replaced, and then I needed new transmission fluid. And while they were already in there, I had the filter changed just because it was already open. That was probably the first signs of transmission problems, because later, while we were in Pennsylvania, I had to have the transmission replaced. Now, pretty cool thing about the powertrain warranty is I got to have a transmission put in the truck at almost 130,000 miles for free. Bad part about that, 2 days before our transmission was diagnosed as failed, they discontinued that transmission. And there was only 2 of them in the country, and we were not able to get either one of those. So they had to use an aftermarket transmission. Whole huge deal. Basically, my warranty on the transmission has gone out the window. I was told one thing when another thing was true. I'll cover that more in my Mopar vehicle protection plan. But basically, the transmission now is out of warranty, and we're on our own for that. So after we had the transmission replaced in Pennsylvania, we were good all the way out until we were on the West Coast. I had some problems with the exhaust manifold bolts again. What happens is they break, and then you start to get an exhaust leak. It gets louder and louder and louder as more break. While we were in Canada, I actually had to have both outer tie rod ends and sway bar links repaired. I was at a shop getting the tires rotated, and then they all freaked out. They're like, "Oh my God, you're towing? You need to get this fixed right away." So I went to another dealer, got it up on the rack right away, and they ordered parts and got it fixed real fast for me. The next thing that happened is the AC went out on that trip as well, and our local dealership made its first attempt at fixing it. They were unsuccessful. It never actually worked. We got down into the Southwest where it started heating up, turned on the air, and I just got hot air blowing at me. After that, we had to have our no longer warranty transmission replaced in Mexico. I wasn't able to get a new one, so we had one bought used. I knew nothing about it. It was a little pricey for just the used transmission, but labor was next to nothing. So I got a transmission put in the middle of nowhere in Mexico. We got back from that trip. The dealer made a second attempt at fixing the AC, and they also replaced the transmission cooler lines that were leaking. And then after that, they made a third attempt at fixing the AC. And basically, I have everything replaced on the AC except the compressor now. After that, we were in Canada once again in the Banff Jasper National Park area when the transmission had some more trouble. Our Mexican transmission, basically the wiring between the solenoid pack inside the transmission and the wiring harness had broken somehow. I don't know if I hit something, or I don't know if it was a bad install in Mexico or had been damaged at some point in time, but it broke apart. And so I needed a new solenoid pack and a wiring harness. And at the same time, we were also getting some weird noise out of the rear axle. And so basically most of the rear axle was overhauled. So that was, the truck was out of commission for a long time for that. It was almost 30 days in the shop. That was pretty unfortunate, but we worked through it and made the best out of it we could. We have an entire separate video about that entire journey if you want to watch that. On that trip as well, we were in the middle of nowhere, leaving Anaheim Lake on our way to Williams Lake, and 2 cylinders had spark plugs that had broken and started misfiring a little bit outside of town. And so I had to have 4 spark plugs changed, which was pretty strange. I'd never really heard of that happening before, but I guess somehow we always end up with some bad luck. And then after that, I had requested, because we have the warranty, so I called and said, "Hey, this thing handles like garbage. It bounces all over the road. My struts have to be worn out." And so basically they were able to warranty struts all the way around. They also replaced the TPMS sensors because they had stopped working a long time ago, slowly over time. It was basically down to none of those. And while they were doing the struts, they broke a couple parts and basically had me pay for it because of the age of the truck and the rust. And unfortunately, they're going to not cover those types of things under warranty. And so I got to pay for that as well. And then last year, because the transmission was supposed to come with a warranty when we got it, I continued to fight through the dealer in Pennsylvania, AutoZone, where the transmission was replaced, and then National Powertrain is who actually makes the transmission. I kept, I don't know, harassing them. Finally, they sent me a new transmission out of the whole deal. My warranty was never registered. Someone dropped the ball, and I didn't buy the transmission, so I couldn't do any of the paperwork. Somebody screwed up there. So anyway, I was able to get a new transmission. Ours started giving us trouble in Mexico when we were there in 2024. We made the decision when we got home to have it swapped out in a local shop. It was pretty cheap. It was $900 and some, and that includes some fluid with it as well. And so now we have another new transmission. So this is like our third and a half, because the Mexican one was still working when we pulled it out, but we thought better safe than sorry. And this one is running much, much cooler and is much happier. The requirement to keep in my warranty is that every 5 years I'm required to get an inspection. During that inspection, a whole slew of things were found wrong, mostly minor, some leaks, leaking gaskets and things. So those were all replaced. At the same time, I also had them replace all my 12-volt plugs under warranty because they're all just worn out. And then I had another one of the front wheel bearings replaced. This time, instead of replacing just the manifold bolts, they actually replaced the manifolds because they were cracked and bolts were broken. And this is a known ongoing problem with Dodge. And there was a part in the steering component linking the steering wheel to the tires that was worn out and needed to replace, that I had to pay for out of my own pocket as well. So that pretty much covers all the repairs. I know that was a little lengthy. Hopefully you can follow along on my little sheet here. So as you can see, for a truck that's done a lot of towing in its life, we really haven't had all of that much trouble, especially if you take out the transmission trouble. You know, having to have one put in Mexico probably added some extra repairs that wouldn't have been necessary had we not been stranded down there. You know, it's got a 16-year-old truck with 250,000 miles on it. It shows its age. But I don't know what normal is for people that tow all the time. I don't know if people that are full-timing, most timing, or even people that are weekend warrior all the time, you know, how often do things break down? I don't know what normal is. The other thing is that because we have the lifetime warranty, repairs are going to be maybe free. Might cost me $100. Some things now are starting to cost a little bit more because of the amount of rust on the vehicle being from Michigan. Bolts break, things like that happen, and somehow I'm getting charged for that. That's a different story. But basically, right now, because repairs basically cost us next to nothing, and a new truck is going to be $50,000 to $75,000, we have not been able to justify getting a new one. So another reason that we keep our truck and we haven't got a new one is that we take our truck anywhere. There's forest roads that we go down. We'll take it through the mud, river crossings, all kinds of things, where our truck really has no business going. Diablo Drive out in the Cabeda Prieza Wildlife Refuge. I would not want to take a brand new truck through that. And so this is one of the benefits of having a truck that's 16 years old. It gets some new scratches in it. I can't really even tell from all the old scratches. You know, it's showing its age. It's got some rust on it, all kinds of things. And so we don't mind when something happens to it in our journeys. With a new truck, that's going to be a lot bigger problem. But what do you guys think? What is the appropriate time to replace a truck? That's where we really struggle. It's hard to just drop, you know, that amount of money. I'm not going to say that we're poor, but we certainly aren't growing money on trees. And so it's really hard to go out and spend, you know, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to replace something that really isn't even going to be an upgrade for us. But let us know what you think. Are we breaking down more than we should? Should we replace this thing? Should we roll the dice? Should we see how long it'll last? We're open to any suggestions, criticism, comments you might have. It's on our first day on YouTube. We can handle your abuse. Thanks for watching. Let us know.